The first scream didn't sound human at first. It tore through the quiet morning air like something breaking after years of pressure. A woman's voice trembling with fear, the crash of something shattering, and then the unmistakable cries of two children. At that same moment, under the soft daylight filtering across the quiet suburban street, Rowan Hale froze beside his car with his daughter's school lunch in one hand and his keys in the other. He didn't need to see where the sound came from. His body moved before his thoughts could catch up, driven by an instinct he never questioned ever since the day he became a single father. The source of that cry belonged to someone trapped, someone hurt, someone hoping someone would come. Glowing star ripple of love viewers, if you believe hope, compassion, and second chances still matter, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support stories that heal hearts. Glowing star. Rowan rushed toward the open-air terrace of the nearby cafe where a morning meeting had gone terribly wrong. Sunlight pooled gently over the city plaza, but nothing about the scene felt peaceful. A man in his late 30s, dressed in a wrinkled business shirt as if he hadn't slept in days, was gripping a woman's arm with disturbing force. The woman, elegant yet visibly shaken, had her back pressed against the wooden post of the cafe's entrance. Her young daughter and son clung to her waist, sobbing into her skirt. Plates on the nearby table were overturned, a glass had shattered, and the people seated around them were frozen, unsure whether to intervene or flee. Rowan didn't know her name. He didn't know she was a CEO who built her company from the ruins of a broken past. He didn't know she had been trying to escape an ex-partner who refused to let her live freely. All he saw was a mother terrified, her children trembling, and a man whose rage had crossed the line between personal pain and cruelty. He stepped in like a wall forming between a storm and the vulnerable. His voice stayed calm, though something in his chest throbbed sharply at the sight of the children crying. He had known that sound too well, the sound of kids trying to stay brave when the world felt unsafe. Rowan didn't shout or threaten. He simply placed himself in the space that the man had no right to invade. The ex-partner spat accusations, words soaked in bitterness and entitlement, but Rowan barely heard them. What he noticed was the mother's shaking breath, the way she was trying so hard not to fall apart in front of her children. He read pain in her eyes that mirrored pain he knew in himself. When the cafe owner called the police, the ex finally retreated with one last glare, disappearing down the street like a storm unwilling to admit defeat. The silence that followed trembled with leftover fear. The mother, Valeria Arden, slowly sank to her knees, hugging her children tightly as daylight flickered across the cobblestone plaza. Rowan didn't touch her, didn't crowd her, just stood respectfully nearby in case she needed safety more than space. He learned her name only minutes later, but even before he knew the syllables, something about her stayed in his mind like a soft echo. She thanked him with a hoarse voice, trying to smile through the wavering of her composure. He introduced himself quietly, still trying to steady his own heartbeat, and his little daughter Kelly tugged his hand, asking if the woman was hurt. Valeria told her she was okay, though her eyes revealed the truth. She had been holding herself together for years, and this morning nearly shattered what was left of her strength. The police handled the immediate aftermath, but the emotional residue stayed with Rowan all day. He dropped Kelly at school, but his thoughts kept flickering back to Valeria's trembling hands, the fear in her son's eyes, the quivering breath of a mother trying to be unbreakable. Rowan had seen that type of exhaustion before. He had lived it during the year after losing his wife, when he had felt like he was one bad moment away from collapsing but kept going because his daughter needed him. As the afternoon rolled in with soft daylight crossing the sidewalks, Rowan found himself walking past Valeria's office building, a tall glass structure shimmering under the sun. He hadn't planned to stop, but when he saw her sitting alone on a bench outside the lobby, elbows on her knees, staring at her hands as if unsure how to keep them steady, he felt something tug at him. Valeria was known in the corporate world as a brilliant strategist, a leader who rebuilt a collapsing company into a rising success. But now, without the armor of professionalism, she looked like a woman lost between fear and fatigue. She had sent her children to stay with her sister for the day, hoping they'd calm down, but she remained stuck in the weight of what had happened. Rowan approached gently, choosing the side of the bench that allowed sunlight to bathe the moment in clarity and warmth, not intrusion. Valeria apologized for being emotional, but Rowan told her there was strength in acknowledging fear, not hiding it. She explained how her ex-partner had grown unpredictable in recent months, refusing custody arrangements, showing up without warning, making threats coded in false remorse. Rowan listened without judgment, without assumptions, without offering pity, just presence. Presence was the one thing he knew had once saved him when nothing else could. The more she spoke, the more Rowan saw a woman who had spent years fighting battles alone, corporate wars, family pressure, emotional injuries that had never quite healed. She had excelled in work, yet suffered in silence at home. Rowan shared pieces of his past too, how grief had nearly swallowed him whole after losing his wife, how single parenthood had taught him to be both anchor and sail for his daughter, and how he still sometimes feared he wasn't enough. The daylight around them warmed into a gentle afternoon glow, and with each passing second, the tension that had once choked Valeria's breath began to loosen. For the first time in a long while, her heart felt like it had a moment to breathe freely. Rowan walked her back to her car, not because she needed protection, but because he sensed she needed someone who saw her as a person, not a CEO, not a mother in crisis, not a woman judged for her past, but someone deserving of gentleness. In the days that followed, Valeria didn't just feel safer with Rowan around, she began to heal in small moments she hadn't realized mattered. She watched how he listened to his daughter with patience, how he carried kindness like it was a quiet flame in his chest rather than a performance. Her children warmed up to him surprisingly fast, especially her son, who started asking Rowan small questions about everything from bicycles to bravery. Her daughter clung to Valeria a little less tightly when Rowan visited, as if sensing the environment was finally steady again. Their connection didn't grow like a dramatic spark, it grew like dawn, steadily, warmly, naturally. Rowan became the gentle reassurance Valeria had been deprived of, and Valeria became the unexpected soft place Rowan never thought he'd find again. But a story like this doesn't unfold without a final test. Late one afternoon, Valeria received a message that her ex was attempting to pick up the children again, despite restrictions. Her heart pounded painfully as she rushed to the daycare center, terrified history might repeat. Instead, she found Rowan there, sitting calmly on the front steps with both children beside him, reading them a storybook in the golden daylight. The ex had shown up, furious and reckless, but Rowan had stepped between him and the children with the same quiet strength he had shown at the cafe. The daycare staff had already called security, and the ex fled before causing more harm. Valeria arrived trembling, overwhelmed by the fear of what could have happened, but when she saw her children smiling safely at Rowan's side, something inside her cracked open, not from pain this time, but from relief so deep it felt like a rebirth. She walked toward him, tears slipping down her cheeks, and for the first time since the beginning of her journey, she allowed herself to lean on someone else without guilt. Glowing star, if this story touched your heart, Ripple of Love viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to support these emotional journeys. Glowing star. Before the final heartfelt moment, viewers are kindly asked to comment what part moved them the most. In the last rays of daylight, as the city hummed softly around them, Valeria realized that sometimes life doesn't give heroes capes or grand entrances. Sometimes it gives ordinary people extraordinary courage. Rowan hadn't arrived in her life to replace anything or anyone, he had arrived to remind her that compassion still existed, that safety could be real, and that her children could grow up in a world where strength was gentle, not terrifying. Rowan, in turn, discovered that healing didn't always mean moving on alone. Sometimes it meant allowing hope to return in the form of a woman who had endured too much, 2 children who needed more love than fear, and a new chapter written with patience rather than pain. And as Valeria stood there watching Rowan tie her daughter's shoelace with quiet care, she felt something she thought she had lost forever, peace slowly blooming inside her chest like the softest sunrise, promising that no matter how dark the past had been, the future could still be tender, steady, and beautifully bright.